The following is an Operation Podcast production.
Hi, I'm Dr. Darshan Shah, and I'm the CEO and founder of Next Health, and I'm happy to be here today on EverForward Radio.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to EverForward Radio. I don't know what I'm doing with my hand now, but this is the new intro. I hope you are enjoying the content. If you're new here, welcome. And if you haven't yet done so, making sure you smash that thumbs up button. The subscribe button does a lot for me in the show. Thank you so much in advance. And with that, I want to welcome today's guest, Dr. Darshan Shah.
Thank you for having me.
So you've got the Shaw protocol. Quote, let me help you live a longer and healthier life. Learn to optimize your health, turn back the aging clock, and live a life full of vitality. That's a lot. Those are some bold claims. Are you finding you're actually able to do that, to execute that?
Short answer, yes. Yeah. We actually can. It's a bold claim because it takes some work, right? And so I think that if someone is dedicated and they're able to do some of these things, it takes some work. You don't have to dedicate your entire life to it. The idea is to make it as easy as possible to integrate this into your day-to-day life. But I think it's mainly just teaching people how to unlearn all the negative things that we've learned over the course of the last 50 years that we've been taught or told by media and the government, et cetera. I think once you do that part, that's the biggest part of this thing. I'm a big believer in the Pareto principle. There's 20% of the information.
80-20.
Exactly. 20% of the information is going to give you 80% of the result. So you really only need to apply your energy to that 20% of the information to start with. And that's going to get you there where you need to be.
Mostly unlearning.
Yeah, it's a lot of unlearning.
Dive a little bit deeper there? I think that's a crucial concept because people, especially when embarking on their health and wellness journey in the very beginning stages, maybe the first stage, we think, and I've been there, at my work as a clinical health coach for years, it was, I need to learn everything. I need to consume from the fire hose in order to make my life better. But in my experience, what I'm hearing you say as well, it's more so unlearning to get healthier.
Yeah. I think it's best explained in like examples, right? So I think one of the things that I learned as kind of the cornerstone to health is you go to the gym, as much as you can, but at least 4 or 5 days a week, and you spend an hour in the treadmill, right? And so that's what I learned was the healthiest thing to do. So I got a gym membership like we all do, $30 a month or whatever. You go to the gym.
Just hit the treadmill.
Hit the treadmill for an hour because that's how you lose weight, right? You lose weight by burning calories on the treadmill. And I, like many people, found out quickly that wasn't helping. In fact, I was gaining weight getting on the treadmill an hour every other day. And so what I found out later was that actually your body needs to focus in absolutely spending time developing VO2 max and zone 2 cardio is great. But
we're going to get to that later.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm glad you bring that up. Yeah.
Right. But I had to unlearn that was not the optimal use of my time. Really, I then moved to a combined routine of strength training and cardio. And that strength training is really building muscles will really help me to lose weight and to increase my energy levels and just, overall improve my metabolism. And so I think there's a lot of these little things that we've thought were the healthiest thing to do. I mean, there's a laundry list of them, right? Like avoid fat. There's
don't eat carbs after 6 p.m.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. It's all laundry list of things that we've heard or were taught over the last 50 years that some of the unlearning needs to happen so you can move forward in the right direction. Now,
do you think in another 5 years, 10 years, are we going to be saying the same thing about we need to unlearn what we're in fact talking about now as the cutting edge, as optimization?
I think that there's been massive advances in science and understanding and really understanding from a scientific viewpoint, looking at the studies and really critically evaluating them, that we don't just have the government telling us certain things anymore with very little information. And people have taken a lot of personal responsibility to understand the science and question the dogma. So I feel like there's going to be a lot less of that. But I think, as humans, we will always learn one thing and need to unlearn it to move forward. It's just a fact of life.
I agree, absolutely. And it's interesting, not to get political, but you immediately made me think so much of our nutritional information and public guidance on food groups, the food pyramid, eating habits, my healthy plate, healthy people, all these things, up until really the last 8 years, 10 years before the boom of social media and mass information, that's really kind of where we, the general public, relied on to get our information and guidance of what's healthy and what's not.
Yeah.
Do you feel like kind of finally the government has woken up and, these kind of governing bodies, so to speak, the NIH, CDC, healthy people are they going to adjust their ways? Or because we can just go on Instagram, we go to a podcast and we can get more cutting edge information.
Exactly. So, it used to be where most of the information that we got was coming from the government, right? And so the government would build themselves as the consolidator of information and vetting it and then putting stuff out there to us, like the food pyramid is a perfect example, right? And there was just this assumption that the government has done its due diligence. This is what we pay them to do, and therefore they're giving us the right information. And we now know, 50 years later, that that's what actually made us all sick. Right?
Isn't the food pyramid now literally inverted?
Yeah, exactly.
Quite literally everything. They're like, no, flip that.
It's almost completely flipped around. And I think now that the government is not the kind of the source of information, the government and media is not the source of where we can get information from. The internet has changed everything in that way. And it's really good, right? Like people question things. And, we saw a massive amount of this during COVID, I think. And I think people again learned that you need to be personally responsible for your consumption of information, where you're getting it from, and who you're listening to. Yeah. And I think so now there's a massive shift, like I said, not to get too political, a massive shift in awareness that maybe the best source of information is not the media, is not the government, is actually getting on podcasts like this one and getting all the information for yourself. Unfortunately, the government still controls the purse strings for a lot of this stuff too, right? So a lot of attention and a lot of some of the guidelines that were given follows the money, sadly.
Always, yeah.
Right? Yeah. And so you have massive food companies, tobacco companies, pharmaceutical companies guiding massive organizations through donations and through the money. Once again, I think it's always good as humans for us to take some personal responsibility over where we're getting our information and really finding what works for us. Because another thing that I think a lot of people need to realize is that every single one of us is an individual and we have different biologies too. So just because something works for one person doesn't mean it's going to work for you. So now you have to consume the information, but also understand that you're different than the person actually telling you the information. And how does that apply to you? So I talk a lot with my patients about the bell-shaped curve, right? So,
right, yeah.
There's everyone falls somewhere in that bell-shaped curve. You might be right in the middle, to the left of middle, to the right of middle, on the outliers or way on the outlier, right? And so if you're going to implement the carnivore diet, okay, I'm just giving one example. Yeah. I'm not saying that's right for everybody. It could work for some of the people on one side of the bell-shaped curve and could be an absolute disaster for the other people on the other side of the bell-shaped curve.
Or even the same person over a period of time.
Exactly.
I'm sure you can relate. I have found that as I get 5 years older, 10 years older, the same things that I used to do in terms of enjoyment, but also getting results in terms of body composition, energy, mood, even labs don't always cut it, but they used to, right? So even the same person over time needs to adjust.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, we're evolving as humans constantly, both up here and in our biology, constantly as we age. And you have to do different things as you age. Otherwise, you're potentially going to be doing something completely wrong at a different time in your life, right?
Potentially detrimental as well.
Exactly.
I want to get into technology with you quite a bit. But before we do, just something kind of timely. So I recently spent a long weekend down in Cabo with my wife, and in between getting ready and stuff, we had the TV on just like cable TV, which I never have on at home. I don't have cable. And I shit you not, every single ad, every single commercial was for a different prescription medication.
Crazy.
It's one of those things that you kind of, I work in the health and wellness space, and you know these things are going on, but I'm kind of far removed from the day-to-day of that. Darshan, I was so blown as to every channel we would flip through, every commercial, maybe for like one or two, it was this medication, that medication, this side effect, that side effect. And I was just putting myself in the shoes of the general American consumer going, this is all I'm being fed about information of healthcare, of if I feel this way, this is my solution. What's your take on that?
Yeah, it's a travesty, obviously, that is not regulated more. And unfortunately, advertising costs money, right? And so
A lot of money.
exactly, a lot of money. And who has a lot of money? Pharmaceutical companies have a lot of money. And so they are, just the way the system is set up, they can buy all that TV space. They have more money than anyone else trying to advertise anything, even more money than the food companies do,
Yeah.
you know? And and look, there's no one advertising get 8 hours of sleep, right?
Right. I was like, where are the sleep ads? Where are the healthy podcast ads? Right. I mean, I would love to put an EverForward Radio ad up there, but I don't have an extra couple $100,000 for that ad slot probably.
Exactly. So unfortunately, pharmaceutical companies are making a lot of money on their products, and they're able to spend a lot of that money on advertising, which just goes to also further highlight the fact of that's why healthcare is so expensive. We are paying for this through our insurance, health insurance, right? We're paying for those ads on TV constantly. And so the whole system is immensely broken right now. And it's going to take a massive reset, but you know, I know you're moving into technology. I think technology is going to be the solution out of all of this, because I think people are tired and sick of being sick and tired, you know, as our friend Dr. Mark Hyman says all the time. People are just sick of this now. And I think people are realizing through other forms of media like podcasts, YouTube, et cetera, that there is another solution. I think technology is going to be our only way out of this massive dysfunctional system that we've created that we call healthcare right now.
Of misinformation, really. Yeah. So speaking of technology, right now, I think AI is everywhere. In fact, I use an AI program, third-party program, to edit the video of this podcast. What used to take editors hours now chops up and gives it to me in 45 seconds, a minute. And so we're seeing AI being implemented into a lot of different places to make daily life better. I'm curious to get your take on where AI is going to maybe make healthcare better. What role do you see AI playing in the future of healthcare?
Yeah, I think AI is going to be a massive shift in our healthcare. So everyone will have a free AI primary care physician, health coach, personal trainer in their phone. And it's going to be for free. And you can use it whenever you want. And it's going to be better than any physician you've ever had, because it's constantly tracking biomarkers on a constant basis, your heart rate, your HRV, maybe even your glucose level. And this constant monitoring will be able to make adjustments for you immediately in real time versus waiting for a year to go by when you've already developed metabolic disease. And now you've seen your doctor and they're like, oh, whoops, your hemoglobin A1C went up. We should get you on some, you know, some medication now. That's all going to go away with the evolution of AI and wearables and monitoring of our data through our phones, right? And so it's so funny. I was just having dinner last night. I was sitting next to somebody who heard me talking about this, and this guy came up to me and said, hey, I overheard you talking about AI and healthcare. I'm actually developing an app to put a physician in everyone's pocket. And I'm like,
overheard in LA, of course.
Overheard in LA, right? And I'm like, that's exactly what's needed to happen. Thank you for doing that. I know 5-6 companies that are doing that, and it's great. I think it's going to happen. I think it's, you know, a lot of people are scared of it. I think a lot of physicians actually are saying, you're never going to replace me as a doctor. And, you know, there's a human element that the jury's still out if we can replace that. You know, I think we just talked a little bit about the bell-shaped curve of people and where you are in your biology. Well, there's also that bell-shaped curve about where you are in your mentality about health as well, right?
Very true.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think there's some human-to-human interaction that needs to happen there with a provider that can kind of guide you. But I do think for traditional healthcare, AI is going to make a massive difference.
So I have kind of an interesting take on that, because that's actually how I leveraged exiting my last job. Really? So when I was running this concierge medical practice, the wellness director, and I would work still one-on-one with patients every day, I actually left to create my own health coaching app that synced with their smartphone, wearable devices, even third-party apps like MyFitnessPal. And this was 2017, and I was convinced that this was the future. Right. And I knew that even then, you know, it was kind of still some spin up, getting people used to really using daily technology, or at least setting it up so that it could passively in the background run and provide that information to me. It was a challenge then, and this wasn't really that long ago. 2000, what's that? 6 years, 5-6 years. ish. And now I feel like we're still talking about it. So what is it going to take for both the provider, the physician, the health coach, the professional, but then on the user side to both get it and to be able to meet in the middle in terms of adherence?
Right. I think Steve Jobs said once that there's a perfect time for every new technology. And I think probably back then you might have been a little bit ahead of your time, I think, and I think, I think what it's going to take is that someone will have an app that is very easy to use, has an incredible user interface, is pretty transparent in your day-to-day, and it's just going to communicate with you things that it's seeing, and these communications will actually make a measurable difference in what's happening with your biomarkers of health. And then you're going to start developing this trust with the system to really believe that what this is telling me to do right now is actually making a difference, and there'll be this feedback loop that's created. And so I've been tracking these AI programs here pretty closely. There's this incredible that I can't remember the name of, NutriSense or something, that you can scan your food and it automatically knows grams of protein in it and all of this.
It's been around for a while. It definitely has some bugs to work out, but I'm sure it's gotten better.
It's going to get better and better. I mean, I did a few things with it, and it's actually getting pretty good, to be honest with you. Things that, it's incredible that you can take a picture of something and it can break down the macronutrients in it.
I remember seeing maybe like 2 years ago on Shark Tank, these guys were on, and it was a smart plate that had built-in cameras. So whatever you put on the plate, it would scan for you and then send to the device. Yeah. That was pretty wild.
That is wild. Yeah. And so when these things kind of all come together in this perfect confluence of, and it doesn't need to actually be perfect, right? Because as long as you know that you've eaten, we're going to rely less and less on pharmaceuticals to keep us healthy. Pharmaceutical industry is going to have less money, and there's going to become a point in time where they're no longer the dominant force.
Do you think that'll really happen? Like, will the powers that be really ever allow us to get to a point to detach this high level of reliance on pharmaceuticals for healthcare?
It's the same question that we can ask about energy, right? Like, will the oil companies allow us to finally go off of oil and gas for energy, right? I think that human innovation and for humans to be able to keep our species alive, it's an unstoppable force. And being sick and using pharmaceuticals is getting in the way of us being healthy and living our most vibrant and disease-free lives, And so we need to get that out of the way. And so I just trust in humanity being able to take us in the right direction as a collective force.
I'm with you. I would love to see it. It's going to take everybody listening, watching, to not only be your own champion, but to be a champion for health, for your family, your household, your community.
But think about it, like even now compared to 10 years ago, how many more champions of health do we see?
Well said. I think a lot more.
A lot more people are really taking it upon themselves to listen to podcasts like yours, to read the books that are out there, and to improve their own lives and spread the word. I see it. I mean, I'm on the speaking circuit now, and I have never had more speaking engagements than I do right now. I mean, it's almost like unmanageable, the number of people that want me to speak about optimizing their health and living longer and living disease-free longer. And I just, I never thought it would be this way, and people are definitely questioning the traditional system now.
Okay, so do you think maybe particularly in these audiences, is it more so because there are more people waking up for the first time and going, oh, I actually do have dominion over my health, and there's a lot, to your point, of unlearning that needs to be made? Or in kind of my opinion, and maybe I'm just skewed because this is the world that I live in, it's almost like this obsession with people. They have to, like, I'm healthy and I want to get healthier. The biohackers and the optimizers. What's the new, latest, greatest, best thing? Is it more the first or the latter, or is it kind of both?
It's that entire bell-shaped curve moving more towards the right. And so what I mean by that is you have the biohackers that are the that are the early adopters, right? They're like way out there doing all this crazy stuff, talking about it. But what they've done is they've piqued the interest of people in their own health, and they've turned people's attention towards, oh, you mean I could like get into a sauna and detoxify myself and feel better? Maybe I should look into that. Maybe I should look into other health things, you know? And so now those early adopters have increased the number of followers in that direction. And now I think that even people that would never biohack, okay? They're actually—
Which is a large population.
Exactly.
Most people, I think.
Most people are in the middle of the bell-shaped curve that would never biohack, right? But I do see more and more people going in that direction towards maybe taking a few supplements. These are people that would never have taken a supplement before, really understanding the value of vitamin D, okay?
Or creatine now, I think, has a whole new following for cognitive benefits, and I think the last year or two have been incredible for females in creatine.
Absolutely.
I know so many more women now on the creatine train, which is incredible.
It's incredible, right? Because all the talk about muscle health, right? And I think what's happening is more and more people that would have never thought about this or even, you know, put any attention or time or energy toward their own personal health are now taking the time and energy towards their personal health. So I do think it's not just the biohackers. I think the biohackers have served some purpose in getting people's attention towards this.
They get attention.
Exactly. A good friend of mine is Brian Johnson, right? I love this guy because he does some crazy out there stuff.
Probably the epitome of biohacking.
Exactly, the epitome. But he's gotten a lot of eyeballs, and a lot of people are asking, like, maybe I should do some of this. You know, maybe I should understand what my biomarkers mean. Maybe there are a few supplements out there for me that I should look at.
Should most people strive to be Brian Johnson?
No, I don't think so. I think you know, Brian Johnson is a special case. I think he is getting a lot of attention in that direction. I think it's a positive thing, actually, what he's doing. But I don't think anyone can really be Brian Johnson. You could try very hard to do those things, but Brian Johnson is Brian Johnson, right? Exactly. But I do think that having personal dominion over your own health is a mindset shift that is a collective mindset shift that's happening right now.
How can we become healthier human beings without it dominating our personality trait? How can we maybe just learn and appreciate and still get excited about the things that move the needle for our personal wellness goals without it taking over our life? And, you know, I see this happen with a lot. I've been there. I see this happen with a lot of people, especially in the biohacking space, or even just someone who works out and they just start feeling great after a couple of weeks. All of a sudden, they just start screaming from the rooftops, fitness is the best thing ever. And you're just like, shut up, bro, let me live my life. But we still, to your point, should become our own champion and hopefully become a champion for other people, I think. So how do we kind of navigate that?
Yeah. So I talk a lot about this with my patients, about using the Pareto principle in this for this particular reason as well. There's really only a few actions that you need to put into your life that will make you much healthier. Some of those actions we all know we should be doing. One is avoiding ultra-processed food, eating real food, right? Another one is really prioritizing sleep, getting to bed on time and having a sleep routine and a sleep schedule. Another one is spending some time in movement, going for a couple of walks every day. These are all things that everyone can do for free. And I think it really starts at like a family level, implementing this for yourself and then taking your family along with you, and then maybe getting some of your friends involved as well, and forming this community of people around you that kind of believe in the same kind of ideals and lifestyle that you do, but not overdoing it to where, you know, like you said, you're screaming this from the rooftops.
So maybe doing it not for the gram,
right?
You know, doing it for you and your house first. Yeah,
exactly. Believe it or not, I think that, you know, I think we get a lot of attention towards those people because of Instagram and social media. So we feel like a lot of people are shouting it from the rooftops, which they are. But I think on the grassroots level, there's also much more of that going on. And I see it every day in the patients. I'll see you know, a few patients every day. They're not shouting at the rooftops. A lot of my patients don't even have Instagram, but they've definitely brought their family along with them. You know, they're teaching their kids how to cook at home now, how to shop. If it's a female, they get their husband to do it. The husband brings their wife to their next appointment. So I think there's a lot of that, you know, kind of grassroots swell up happening in people's day-to-day life.
You know, to your point, and just to kind of bring it full circle, mutual friend Sean Stevenson. January 2017, I was at his like live book tour, live podcast event back in DC. And this person asked a very similar question going, Sean, I've been listening to your podcast. I've read Sleep Smarter. It's impacted my life tremendously. I'm feeling better, blah, blah, blah. But no one else in my family is on board. And I love them so much. I care for them so much. I want them to feel better and to have a better life, but no one else is getting on board. How do I get them on board? And I'll never forget his answer. Sean was just like, in the coolest, swaggiest way that Sean can. He's so cool. Yes. He was just like, man, you gotta keep a seat at the table for him.
Yeah.
And I think that still holds true today. Right. It's so hard not to scream from the rooftops when you lower your A1C, when you get off of medication, when you wake up and you actually don't need to stretch for 15 minutes or have pain in your knees, or you hit that threshold on the scale or on the treadmill or in the weight room. You want everybody else that you care about to feel this way or just to know that it's possible.
Yes.
And to your point, it doesn't really take a whole lot. It takes a few simple, consistent things. And then you just wake up one day and like, holy crap, I feel better.
Yeah.
And that's still so true. And so I think to anybody listening and watching, if that's you, if you're struggling, the best thing you can do for especially your mental health, because you can go crazy trying to help
other people.
But the best thing you can do is just keep a chair. Yeah. I wish I had another chair here at the table. We'll keep that for all the people that we're trying to influence and champion for.
Right, exactly. I think also there's a big realization that I had a few years ago when I first started down this journey. So I started off as a surgeon, and I changed my entire life into this health optimization career of mine now about 8 years ago. And one of the things I realized very early on in seeing patients and trying to coach them through changing their health was before they changed anything about their biology, they had to change their mentality around it, right? And so what I mean by that is I think a lot of people don't live in a place of positivity or kind of a growth mindset.
Sure. If you don't feel your best or you have some kind of negative self-talk or even body image issues, I mean, it's got to be so difficult to get out of that up here.
Exactly. And you'll never put these actions into place if you don't get into that growth mindset, into that feeling where you really believe that you can change your life, And so I spend a lot of time up front evaluating what is the mindset of this person and how am I going to get them from potentially having a negative mindset or a fixed mindset into that growth mindset. And so there's different things that we do on the mindset piece as well, things like visualization, gratitude, et cetera, that can help push them into that. And it takes time, but the reality is true is that you're not going to change anything about your biology or your habits unless you get into the growth mindset.
Majority of all my patients for years, it was less and less about what's the diet, what's the workout, more so about behavior change.
Right.
It was all behavior change. It was all up here. Yeah. Let's talk money. So I looked up, according to Forbes, the average U.S. salary in 2024 is $59,428. And then, now this was a couple of years before that, they're still waiting to, I guess, add everything up. The average monthly expenses, according to Forbes again, for just one person was $3,693 or $44,312 annually. So I don't math good, but that only leaves about $13,000, $14,000 annually, again, according to this Forbes article, to play with.
Right.
When we're talking about a lot of the things that we've talked about, optimization, biohacking, even gym memberships, clean eating, that doesn't come cheap.
No.
So how can the average person who only has $13,000 extra a year really invest in their health?
Right. So I just got into a big, not a big, but a semi-big Instagram war with somebody over this.
Ooh, I got to check this out.
Yeah. Right. So I did a post a couple of weeks ago that I stated that it's actually cheaper to eat healthy now than it is to eat unhealthy, eat processed food. And, a lot of people are like, no way, you're wrong. Yeah, that's BS. And so I actually went to the supermarket and I compared your standard American breakfast of like waffles, syrup, orange juice, to getting some frozen blueberries and a carton of eggs. And if you look at the pricing now of some of this ultra processed food, is actually more expensive. A box of cereal is like $6 now.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And compared to eating healthy, you can actually eat healthy now for less than eating ultra processed food.
Probably when you break it down, like serving per serving kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And so there's all sorts of ways to kind of skin a cat with your diet. Obviously, buying organic produce is going to be more expensive, but you don't have to. You can buy frozen produce, and it's almost just as good. It's not fresh, but it's probably frozen right on site.
Flash frozen is great.
Frozen is great. Right,
a lot of people discredit frozen fruit and vegetables.
Right.
In some situations, it can actually be a great option.
That can be better because the nutrients are locked in at the point of freezing, right? So little things like that. And what I say is, once again, the Pareto principle is that there's 20% of actions that's going to make the 80% result. That 20% is actually free, believe it or not, right? And you and I both know this, right? You don't have to have an expensive Equinox gym membership to buy a couple of dumbbells in your house and do a home workout. That's just as effective as going to your gym almost, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and like, what does it cost to get into a good sleep routine? Like, it's almost nothing. Just change your schedule around, right? Yeah. And so these kind of things are free. Everyone can do them. I'm a big fan of giving people the most impactful stuff first, and I find that it's almost always free. Yeah.
I'm sure this is in your wellness wheelhouse. Yeah. I know, and I'll link this down. You got some amazing resources. I'm going to link all of your stuff in the show notes for everybody. Is financial well-being in that wheelhouse by chance?
Yeah. So one of the things I do talk about is mental health. Okay. Mental and emotional health, and part of that is all the different things that cause stress in your life, right? And this is other people, your finances. There's a lot of externalities that can cause stress in your life, and trauma as well, right? I mean, a lot of people have trauma from financial issues as well, and absolutely it works into the overall paradigm of taking care of yourself.
So then, in efforts to be able to make the choice that I can afford a healthy life, I need to first break that barrier of a limiting belief of poor financial health.
Exactly.
So what would you advise somebody to begin to do to make the better choice in the grocery store by first looking at their wallet?
Yeah. I think a lot of people make a lot of rash decisions with their wallet, and they don't really think through things. And so,
I like to spend.
Right. A lot of
I get very excited.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people do. A lot of people do like to spend, and they spend over their skis, and they get themselves in a bad financial situation. But I think that, look, I'm not a financial expert by any means, but I think living within your means is definitely a guiding philosophy, and not getting into debt is a guiding philosophy as well. And for a lot of people that they're already in that place where they're in debt, they're already, living outside of their means, but any change is going to take place. It's going to take education. It's going to take time. So have a plan over the next year or two to get yourself into a better financial position. And I don't think in fact, I don't think your health should be a source of financial stress. In fact, I think that if you focus on your health, you'll have less financial stress because you're going to be spending less money on the things that are actually harming your health. Things like, alcohol, going out at night and going to a restaurant and then having some drinks and then having the dessert. And then, all that costs a lot of money. Yeah. In fact, if you commit to your health and you prepare a week's worth of food at home and you just stay home for a week and you get to bed on time and you eat the meals that you prepared, you're going to end up saving a lot of money at the end of the day. So a health commitment can actually help your finances, in my opinion. Yeah,
it comes to mind for me. A lot of people go to their nutrition when trying to get healthy first, and they go to looking at calories or looking at, intuitive eating, mindful eating, or maybe even, if it fits your macros. They kind of go to the more that quantitative aspect. I think because thankfully so, we have food with calories and macronutrients and things like that. That's an option for people. I'm not saying it's the only option, but just take that same mentality of quantifying what it takes to get to the nutritional quantification. You know, look at the budget for your calories the same way you would your budget for the money to get those calories.
Right.
Have that same level of awareness and mindset and plan going into it.
That's a really good analogy to make. I'm sure, you know, you probably have this conversation a lot. I've had a lot too with my patients is how am I going to afford to do all of this, you know? And it's, when you really break it down for people and understand like that's a limiting belief that they're having and they change your mindset around it, then they understand like, how can I afford not to do this?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think a lot of people think healthy people and they think the person that has maybe the big, nice, fancy car that drives to Equinox or the big fancy gym or goes on these vacations or, you know, spends all their money on green smoothies and all this stuff, which kind of brings me to another question I have around money and healthcare and wellness is that there seems to be more dollars being poured into getting as, quote, well as possible. Does wellness nowadays mean who has the most disposable income?
Yeah. So, I mean, once again, it does seem like, you know, the only way to get well is to buy that $8 smoothie, and that's what's going to lead to wellness.
Where are you getting an $8 smoothie? I haven't spent less than like 12 in LA.
Yeah, you're probably right.
You got a sidebar with me on that.
I actually don't buy smoothies.
I would love an $8 smoothie.
I'm making it up. That's kind of disheartening to hear that they're $12 now. Wow.
Yeah. On the low end.
Oh man. Yeah. So I think that, you know, I think a lot of people just have to get their mind wrapped around that the biggest things that you can do to make a difference in your health are going to be free. They just require your behavior change. I love talking about the ability to build habits, right? I think the most powerful weapon that you could have, not just in your health, but also your life to make massive difference is to have some knowledge around habit forming. And so absolutely. When people come and see me as a patient, like I don't talk about their health at all the first visit or two. We're talking about mindset, habit forming. We're talking about those key skills. And I think once you get into the habit of building better health, you'll find out that a lot of it can be done for less money and it involves not buying the $12 smoothie, actually.
All right, point taken. Thanks, Doc.
Right.
But I get points. So like every eighth one is free. So.
Of course it is.
You dangle an incentive in front of me, I'm going to do it. That's literally why I joined the military. But a $20,000 sign-up bonus.
Oh my gosh.
Now I'm blowing it all on smoothies.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, truly. So let me ask you one more question around finances here. If the person listening, watching, if they have an extra $100 a month for a year, they've kind of budgeted out their finances and they're like, you know what? I have $100 a month. I'm going to commit to my healthcare. What do you think they should spend it on? And then also, let's go all the way kind of the other end of the spectrum. Maybe someone has $1,000 a month, disposable income they want to commit to their health. What would you advise those two people to do with it?
Okay, so I think for $100 a month, I would kind of space things out a little bit. I think 1 month I would get a set of blood markers done. Okay, $100 to get a set of biomarkers done. Maybe your doctor will do it for you for free, but that's something definitely worth the investment. One time at least. Secondly would be if you're not used to going to the gym and working out and exercising, getting a trainer to really help you do it correctly. You know, finding someone that can give you a workout program, show you how to do it without hurting yourself, right? I think also
that's a great answer.
Yeah,
that's a great answer.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of people skip over. They just get a gym membership and then they don't do things right.
Then they get sore, they get frustrated,
right,
they
don't get results.
They don't come back.
Right, exactly. I do think a lot of people have a lot of concern and confusion over nutrition. And the reason is because nutrition is different for everybody. And so you really need to work with someone one-on-one to really get your nutrition right, you know? And so I think maybe investing in a one-time consult with a nutritionist would be a good idea as well. I think arming yourself with some information, using your $100 1 month to buy 5 books on health that are incredibly impactful.
What, maybe not 5, but what maybe top health books would you recommend or come to mind for you?
Yeah. So I would say Casey Means, Joe wrote a book called Good Energy.
Yeah,
incredible book. Gabrielle Lyon's book about muscle-centric health is an incredible book as well. I would also buy Mark Hyman's book, Food, What the Heck I Should Eat. One of my favorite books of all times. Atomic Habits by James Clear. Incredible. That's the first book I buy, to be honest with you, is get that book first and learn how to build habits. Become a habit-forming ninja, you know, know how to change your mindset in the course of your life at any moment by learning how to form habits. It's so important. And then a good book on sleep. If you're struggling with sleep, Dr. Michael Breus has an incredible book on sleep. I think
The Power of When.
Yeah, The Power of When is a fantastic book. I think, there's a lot of books that kind of lead you down the rabbit hole of like the science and the philosophy of things. Those are good books to read later. These are books that give you practical, applicable, like do now things to do. And so those are the books you want to read first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, I'll make sure to link all those in the show notes for everybody. Most of the ones, except for Gabrielle's and Casey's, because they're new, those books that you mentioned were all the very beginning books that I read in my kind of health and wellness journey. The Power of When. Atomic Habits has been out for a while, but also Charles Duhigg's books on habits and
The Power of Habit.
Power of Habit,
Right.
and then Mark Hyman's book, Food, What the Heck Do I Eat? And then also one that I think we talked about recently, Dr. Oz, his book, You, the Owner's Manual.
Right. That was one of the first books.
The first book for me that kind of peeled back the veil of what's going on underneath this meat suit in a very understandable way. I didn't need to be a doctor to understand this stuff, even though it was written by him and another doctor, and just made me go, oh, wow, there are things going on that I actually have control over and I can influence in a positive way.
Right.
Yeah.
And these books, believe it or not, like almost anyone can read them. Like if you're a high school student, you can read these. People in high school should be reading these books because that's what things, that's where you can make the most difference for the rest of your life directionally. So I think these are some books that are totally worth the investment. They're not going to take you a year to read. A lot of these books you can read in just like, a month or so, and you're going to make a massive difference in your health journey.
All right, now what about the person who's like balling, they're very financially secure, they want to commit $1,000 a month to their health care? Maybe at this point that's more of like advancing or optimizing. I'm assuming if you got an extra $1,000 you want to commit, you've already kind of done the baseline work. Right. What can they do? What would you recommend?
Yeah. So for those people, it once again totally depends on where you are, right, in your health journey. Most people do need to start off with a full functional medicine workup. Okay. Now this is checking not just 10 biomarkers, just checking like 1,000 biomarkers.
All the biomarkers.
Exactly. Including your genetics, your hormones, your cancer risk, all of these things we can check for. And right now there's more biomarkers out that are incredibly beneficial than ever before. And so we have a massive amount of information that we can use to help guide your health journey. And so getting those functional medicine biomarkers and seeing a functional practitioner, I think is a good starting place. And then once you put the big rocks in place, like getting your supplementation right, getting your exercise program correct, your nutrition, your sleep, then I think now you start doing some of the more, I'm using quotes, biohacker stuff, right? So maybe getting a membership to a place where you can use things like sauna therapy, cryotherapy, LED light therapy, hyperbaric oxygen therapy. All these things can become part of your routine. You can't do these things one time and expect a difference.
It's not a one and done result. You might feel a certain way, especially sauna and, IV drips and cold plunge, you're immediately going to feel a way. But to your point, the compounding benefits, the actual health benefits, they need reps.
Exactly. They need reps. And so getting into some sort of routine, either weekly or bi-weekly, where you're doing some of these programs, I would spend some money on that. I also think, that there's some expensive stuff that you can do as well, that once you've gone down this road for a while and you're really feeling good and you want to really take it to that next level, now you can start doing things like full body MRIs, maybe, IV NAD drips. You can do things along those lines that can now start moving the needle for you. And to be clear, like some of these more advanced, more expensive things, you don't need them. These are towards the end of the wellness, right? Now you're talking about that 20% of
it's really a want, not as much a need.
Exactly.
For most people,
Exactly. Right.
Where do you think people are unnecessarily spending too much money under the guise of this is for my health, this is for my wellness? Where do you kind of think it's just like, honestly, bro, you're throwing your money away?
Some of it is a $12 smoothie.
Shots fired. All right.
No, look, we have friends that make expensive smoothies that are incredible, and like I use them. I use them for treats all the time. But I would say,
am I going to pay rent or get a smoothie today?
Exactly.
Yeah. Also overheard in LA.
Right. I think chasing the latest supplement trend. I think people. There are people that have like bags and bags full of supplements. And look, if that's what you want to spend your money on, that's totally fine. But I think, I think that you want to like focus. If you have a limited budget, you want to focus in on things that are really going to move the needle. If you have an unlimited budget, you can definitely go down the long tail of all these other things, right? And so I think just dialing it back a little bit on focusing on things that make the biggest difference is the key.
So kind of shifting gears into information, we touched on this a little bit in the beginning, but do you think nowadays, here we are, summer 2024, do we have too much access to information in terms of what really improves our health, or is information overload actually negatively affecting our well-being?
Yeah, I mean, this is something I talk about all the time, is that we are living in an age of information overload, and people are getting paralysis over analysis, right? So there's so much information, people don't know what direction to go in, and they are kind of paralyzed in their health journey. They're not making any movement in their health journey. Or maybe they tried one thing and it actually took them backwards because they didn't implement it correctly or whatever. So absolutely, there's an overabundance of information out there, okay? But the blessing in disguise there is that now you can really start seeing the differences between good information and, like Instagram content information.
How
right?
can the average person really differentiate that?
Because what happens is you have the different people that are putting out information, and you can see which ones are developing the most credibility, right? And so, for example, there's Andrew Huberman, there's Peter Attia, there's all the people that wrote the books that we're talking. Thank you. There's all the people that wrote the books that we talked about. Yeah. I think there's a lot of differentiation now in the credentials and the people putting out the information. And there's trust that's also developed between people that have been around a long time. And you can parse this now by the number of articles that they've written, the number of books they've written, the number of people that are actually listening to them. And you can make your own decisions now about where you're going to get your information from, right? Okay. And also I think that, there's people that'll give information in the format that you need to hear it in as well, right? Because we don't have an unlimited amount of time.
Well said, yeah.
Right? Yeah. So there's not everyone out there, even though, he has a massive following, Andrew Huberman, not everyone out there is going to be able to take Andrew's information and be able to apply it into their life, because you have to invest 3 hours into a podcast.
I mean, hell, I live in this space, and many times I'm like, rewind what? Like, repeat, please.
Exactly. So I think, people like yourself that are taking some of this information and making it more accessible to the average or the
non-Huberman,
right? Or the people that
scientists,
exactly the people that you can definitely speak to at an intelligent level. You pick the 4 or 5 things that are working for you, right? And I think it's easier now that we have choices. Before it was just here's the food pyramid. Right?
Good luck.
Good luck, right? Exactly.
Yeah. Maybe go to the library or do your own research, but no one's going to do that.
Right.
Most people aren't going to do that.
Yeah.
When you look at content, what has you shaking, health, wellness, books, podcasts, content, social media, lectures, whatever. When you look at this stuff, what has you shaking your head the most? Where are people taking extreme liberties with their claims and really just leveraging one-off examples of scare tactics and views?
Yeah.
That's a tough question. But.
Right. I mean, not to name any names, but I think we all see biohackers. I use biohackers in a loving way, actually, because I think I'm very appreciative to people that are self-proclaimed biohackers for bringing a lot of attention to this field.
Pioneers,
exactly.
Creatives, absolutely.
Exactly.
Pushing the boundaries.
Right. But people have to realize that they're pushing the boundary on their own bodies, and this might not work for you, right? And so, and it might not be something that you should necessarily do for your individual biology, right? And so I think that if you have that level of understanding about the information that you're taking in, you're gonna be mostly safe. Now, if you're looking at people using scare tactics, right, that's generally a red flag, right? It's generally a red flag when someone's trying to scare you.
But that's so difficult, right? I'm just thinking of the general everyday American who is on social media or walking through a book aisle. It's marketing, it's hooks, it's colors, it's sounds. They're going to get drawn in typically to the thing that intentionally catches their attention first, not necessarily the most credible headline.
Right. Well, it's absolutely true. And that's the power of marketing, right? And so the power of marketing is always going to be out there. But I think now at this point in human history, we are less susceptible to the power of marketing than we ever have before. I really believe that. I think people have become, for good or for worse, more skeptical of a lot of things. I mean, if you look at every Instagram post where someone is saying, this is the way, half the people are saying, yes, totally agree. The other half are like, this is bullshit, you know? And so I think when you see that kind of like questioning happening on the comments of Instagram posts, you see people are less conducive to marketing, basically. Yeah. And I think that's a good thing. I think we're not all following one direction. People are definitely questioning more.
I also just think nowadays, maybe this is just me, I just assume everything is an ad. I assume I'm constantly being targeted and marketed to. Maybe it's a little cynicism, but it's just so true. I think especially in social media and, really in content space in general, it's really hard to decipher what is not even just genuine information, because it could be genuine, real information, but it's under the umbrella of, hey, this all has been an ad kind of thing. It's a very tricky place to live in. And I speak very openly on that because that's how I make my living. I mean, this podcast has sponsors. I talk about things and promote things through the lens of what works for me, but like I have to pay my rent, I have to eat, and I'm trying to inform and educate a public, but also myself, and make a living at the same time. It's not easy. Yeah,
but I do think that your listeners do have that certain degree of respect and trust for you, that you're not going to take on a sponsor. You're not going to take on a sponsor that you really don't believe in their product. I think your guests have known you long enough. You've been doing this long enough, and your listeners have known you long enough that they know that if there's a sponsor on your podcast that is generally something you would believe in, or you wouldn't promote it.
It always is. Yeah, it always is.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
What about blood work? When it comes to information, I know we talked about it earlier, but I view diagnostic labs, comprehensive labs, maybe even getting into genetic testing, allergy testing, functional medicine testing. That is probably the best snapshot of information when it comes to our bodies, our health possible.
Sure.
So what are the most vital diagnostic labs to be aware of that we actually have control over? And what biomarker should we monitor most closely over time, meaning I'll say annually?
Right. No, this is a great question. It's one of my favorite topics to talk about. So one topic I talk about a lot with my patients is really empowering them to become the CEO of their own health, right? And so when you're running a company as a CEO, as you know this, you look at your numbers all the time. You have to make sure you can pay your bills. So you look at your profit loss statement, probably even on a weekly basis, maybe monthly at the most is when the last time you look at it. And you're also looking at other indicators of your business. Like for a podcast, you're looking at the number of listeners you have, et cetera. So why would you outsource your health to a primary care physician that's looking at, you don't even know what they're looking at, once a year for 15 minutes and letting them tell you if you're headed in the wrong direction or not, right? It's absolutely the wrong mentality to be in. People need to take control of their personal well-being and their health, and they need to learn just as much about their biomarkers and what they mean, and check them more frequently. And so I think there's about 10 biomarkers out there that everyone needs to be able to follow on a frequent basis, maybe even quarterly if possible. These are biomarkers that you can get really inexpensively or even for free by asking your doctor, and your doctor will order them for you and your insurance should pay for it. If your doctor doesn't order them for you, you could still go to the lab and get them, but you might have to pay a little bit for them.
Yeah, a lot of these now are being incorporated with your HSA, FSA if you have it. So maybe your regular insurance might not cover it, but through your HSA, FSA, significant reimbursement, if not total coverage,
Right, exactly. And so I actually make a lot lot of my patients get a spreadsheet. Like, I know there's apps that'll do this for you and people love these kind of things, but I make them use a spreadsheet that I've developed for them. I can even give you a copy of it.
So next to their budget and their diet, it's blood work as well. All right.
Exactly.
All by the numbers here.
And I have the biomarkers, what they mean, and what is the optimal range, right? Because when a doctor looks at your blood work, it turns red from black, like the ink turns red from black once you're in disease state, okay? So you don't want to know when it's too late, when you've already developed the disease. You want to know if you're headed in that direction.
So like the yellow here, if we're going.
Exactly. And you want to get into optimal where it's green. So you want to head directionally towards green, away from yellow, and definitely away from red, right? So I'll give you some examples. For your metabolic health, which is one of the most crucial biomarker sets you can manage and watch. You're monitoring things like hemoglobin A1C and your insulin levels, okay, your triglyceride levels, and then this thing called your triglyceride to your HDL ratio, okay? Those are 4 biomarkers that I educate all my patients on. Your insulin level, you want it optimally, if a fasting insulin level around between less than 2 to 4. Okay, so overnight you measure your blood test first thing in the morning. Do you know what your insulin level is first thing in the morning?
I was going to actually bring up just this morning. I'm doing quarterly labs this year. I just got my recent labs back in, and my A1C was 5.
Great.
And so it's actually gone up slightly. At the beginning of the year, I ran it, and it was like a high 4, which is great personally for me. I have diabetics in my family. Right. I'm team carbs. I've got a bad sweet tooth, but I also live an active lifestyle, so it's in my mind. But I've never, in years of getting labs drawn, I've never had it get below a 5. And so that was a huge win for me. Yeah. And so now to only be back up at a 5 is still a win for me.
Right. No, your hemoglobin A1C of 5 is excellent, actually.
My fasting blood sugar was 91.
91. Yeah. Did you check your insulin level by chance?
Yes.
Great.
If you want to keep the answer rolling, I can pull up my results. Yeah.
So insulin changes way before your hemoglobin A1C does. Okay. So your insulin level is actually the real biomarker you want to be watching, but hemoglobin A1C is just as good a lot of time, or just as good if you can't get the insulin level. That a lot of time your doctor will get a hemoglobin A1C on you, but not get an insulin level on you. Hemoglobin A1C, for people that don't really understand or know what that means, is this your 3-month average of your sugar levels in your blood. Just speaking in generalities. And so you want this level as close to 5 as possible, definitely under 5.4. If you get over 5.7 to 6, that's when you're headed towards diabetes, right? As pre-diabetes headed towards diabetes. So this moves over the course of 10 to 30 years towards diabetes. So you need to know what direction you're headed in. And you're doing exactly what I educate my patients on is, you saw it was 4.8 and then you were like, oh, it's 5 now, right? Okay, so I'm still good, but I want to try to get it back down under 5.
Absolutely.
Right?
Again, knowing for me, I've got immediate family members that are diabetics.
Exactly. So you don't want to head in that direction. So now you're going to be making lifestyle adjustments to get it back down again, right?
Yes.
And so people don't do this at all. And if you don't do this at all for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, you have no opportunity to make these adjustments, right? And so that's why I make people keep their own spreadsheet so they can see what direction some of these biomarkers are headed.
So you were asking me my fasting insulin, correct? 2.94.
Excellent.
Millimeters mercury, is that correct?
No.
Here, I got a doc in the house. Let's have a look. What am I reading here correctly?
Yeah, so this is microunits per milliliter.
Microunits per milliliter.
Okay,
there we go. Okay.
Cyfox is great. Yeah. So this is exactly where you want your fasting insulin, under 4.
Killing it.
So you are killing it. So you're metabolically healthy. Right, which is excellent. And so having diabetes in your family, you're not headed towards that. And if you do not check your blood work for another 5 years, you might find yourself with a hemoglobin A1C of 5.7. You're pre-diabetic, and now you can't make the adjustments to turn it around, right? And so that's a great kind of discussion around the concept of following your biomarkers. Okay. Now, there is a massive list of biomarkers that you can get, right? And they get really,
I've done little
really
labs that it's hundreds.
Right. You don't need hundreds all the time. It's good to maybe do them once or maybe once a year if you can afford it. But there's about 10 or so. And Cyfox is a great company. They measure a lot of these with a finger stick.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I did it all at home, easy kit.
Yeah, easy kit at home with a finger stick. Like I said, your doctor can order these for you, these 10. recommend. They're pretty standard. If your doctor won't order them for you, it's time to ask for a new doctor.
Go see this doctor.
Yeah. Or, but I think once you're empowered with just this bit of information and following it over time, it's going to make such a massive difference to your health that over a long period that you could potentially avoid all forms of chronic disease just by doing this one thing.
Could not agree more. And that is such one of the most baseline pieces of information I have ever and probably will ever give out. When I had patients asking me this question, and now when I have audience members or people on Instagram or whatever, hey Chase, what should I do? What should I check? I go, when was the last time you had your annual lab?
Right.
When was the last time you had your annual physical?
Exactly.
Because it's going to do a lot of different things, I believe. I think that's going to, first of all, remind you that at least once a year, you need to develop and nurture that relationship with a primary care provider. You have to have that relationship. And then usually in that, whether out of pocket or through insurance, you're going to be getting some kind of baseline labs. And I'm assuming a lot of them are going to be what you just described. We need to know A1C. We need to know cholesterol, fasting glucose. We need to, ideally, if you can, vitamin D, omega-3 to omega-6 ratio. If you can get a CRP, these inflammation markers. I think that baseline panel has been expanding over time, which I'm all here for. But start with that. There is not a wearable. There is not a book. There is not anything else that's going to help move the needle more for you than getting that snapshot information for you first.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right, because that's what's actually going on in your biology right now. So at Next Health, what we do is every patient that comes in, we encourage them to get a baseline. And we have all these markers in there, and we encourage them to do it quarterly, actually. And we follow it for them, but we also want them to follow it just so they can make those micro changes in their day-to-day routines and habits as well to get things going in the right direction.
Perfect.
As far as a large panel goes, like everyone should get their genetics done once in their life, just to kind of see if there's any major genes that could be affecting their health. And the big panel of blood biomarkers once a year is what we encourage people to do. So we have this thing called the Total Wellness Panel. We measure literally like every toxin that you can be exposed to, inflammatory markers, hormones. It's just like.
Do you guys check for mold by chance?
Yes, we do. We check
I need
for
to come
mold.
in for that.
Yeah, let's have you come in.
Absolutely.
You should do the Total Wellness Panel because it'll elucidate a lot of information for you.
That's a good reminder. All right, so now I want to get into a little bit of a semi-rapid fire around some, I think, high attention, unique areas in the health and wellness space that someone is probably going to read, listen, scroll through sometime in the near future.
Sure.
NAD. What is it? Why is it important?
NAD is the precursor of energy, basically. So mitochondria, which are the organelles that make energy for every single cell in our body, they require NAD oxygen to make ATP, which is energy. Unfortunately, because we live in a toxic environment, because we're stressed, because we're not getting enough sleep, we have a deficiency of NAD almost all the time. Okay, and so
the general public, everybody, all the time, NAD deficiency.
Yes, because of our environment and our lifestyle. Okay, so if you're a super healthy person like you might not have an NAD deficiency right now.
Maybe. We'll see. I got to check these labs. I don't know.
And there's going to be a blood test now for intracellular NAD, which I'm really looking forward to.
Okay.
So you can actually see what your NAD level is at this moment in time. However, if you're not, if you're having some brain fog, if you're feeling low energy, if you're not sleeping good, all of these things, it could be a sign of low NAD. Now we can supplement directly with NAD supplements now as well. But there's easy ways to raise NAD. Get a good night's sleep, go to the gym and do some
more muscle mass
training.
to body fat mass. Yeah,
exactly. Just generalized movement, eating nutritious food, all of these things will increase NAD, but there is now NAD supplementation available as well.
Yeah, I've been a fan and user of True Niagen.
I love True Niagen.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yep, True Niagen is a great form because it's nicotinamide riboside, and nicotinamide riboside is more easily absorbed into the cell, into the mitochondria than NAD is. So you get a bigger action quicker.
We had Dr. Charles Brenner on the show earlier this year to kind of decipher all of that. Fantastic episode. One you kind of have to decipher a little bit. He knows his stuff, but he also... Love you, Chuck. He'll skirt around some things because I think he's not trying to ruffle some feathers, but I appreciate it. Yeah. Speaking of mitochondrial health, I want to go there next. And so mitochondrial health, when we talk about it, everybody knows it's the powerhouse of the cell. If you went to high school science, you probably heard that term. But what do we mean when we say mitochondrial health? And also, I actually heard you talk about this in another interview, and I've never heard this before. Paraphrasing here, you were talking about how the mitochondria, evolutionarily speaking, are actually a separate organism that has learned to coexist inside of the human cell as kind of this symbiote.
Yes, exactly.
What?
Yeah. So if you look at how life formed, at the earliest beginning stages of life, we had unicellular organisms, right? Just one cell. And they were able to carry out all their functions without mitochondria because they only needed a little bit of ATP. As cells started dividing and becoming multicellular organisms, there just was not enough energy to provide all the cellular processes. So somehow mitochondria, which are these other organisms that can turn oxygen and NAD into ATP, were usurped by the unicellular organisms to provide energy. And so now the unicellular organisms got much, much larger to humans, to elephants, to dinosaurs, because of this symbiotic relationship between mitochondria living inside of the cells. So if you look, and you probably learned this in high school biology too, mitochondria actually have their own DNA, right? Because they are a separate organism that are now living symbiotically within us. So when I say mitochondrial health, what I mean is every cell's health depends upon the amount of energy that it's able to produce, right? And so that's dependent upon the number of mitochondria you have and the mitochondrial efficiency.
So how quantity and quality.
Quantity and quality, exactly. So that's mitochondrial health in a nutshell. How do you improve either one of those or both of those? Do you want to be improving those all the time with exercise, diet, sleep, lower levels of stress, et cetera, reducing the amount of toxins you're exposed to, all of that.
Okay. And I know we could do a whole nother episode on mitochondrial health.
Yes.
And I actually have before with Dr. Chris Wrench from Timeline. But I loved how you kind of just boiled it down to how do we increase the quantity and quality of our mitochondria?
Exactly.
Literally just focus on more energy, more exercise, more sleep.
Right.
I think those are kind of the two main things there. So, I mean, it's not this exercise and not this sleep pattern. It's just more sleep, more exercise, more even just daily physical activity will get us there, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, let me make it even simpler for you. So it's not about what you should do, it's what you shouldn't do. So you shouldn't be sedentary for more than an hour. Every 45 minutes, you want to get up and move around, okay? Even if you don't go to the gym, that's going to have more of an impact on mitochondrial health than actually going to the gym, okay? Eating... Or just let's talk about detoxifying your life in general, okay? So eating less ultra-processed food, exposing yourself to less polluted air, less microplastics in water, and water pollution, and then also getting good sleep, prioritizing sleep. So if you can do those few things, you're going to have much healthier mitochondria, both in number and quality, just by doing those few activities. And all those things are free.
Yeah,
actually.
absolutely. Yeah.
And then there's other things you can do on top of that, of course, like resistance training. You can go into the sauna. You can do lots of other things to improve past that. But that's where you're going to spend most of your time and energy.
I also heard you talk about in this section on mitochondrial health, mitochondria really respond well in terms of increasing quantity and quality to kind of the extremities of those things. So again, stacking on here, daily physical activity, exercise, kind of high intensity exercise, contrast therapy, hot, cold therapy. So it's really kind of pushing our bodies to the limits, so to speak, that really gets us the most bang for the buck in terms of mitochondria, right?
Exactly. Okay. So once you have those basics in place, then exposing your body and therefore your mitochondria to hormetic levels of stress really help to encourage a process called mitogenesis, where you create more mitochondria, okay? And you also get rid of poorly functioning mitochondria.
Right.
And so that hormetic stress is things like sauna therapy, cold therapy, like even a cold shower works great, but cryotherapy, even things like high intensity interval training, exposing your body to extreme levels of physical activity, those things will reset your mitochondria to produce more and also to get rid of the non-functioning mitochondria. All
right, I got a nip in the bud there. Like I said, we can go down a lot of rabbit holes in mitochondria health, but we kind of already touched on metabolic health. And so I feel like, knowing the A1C and blood sugar is crucial information. I'm seeing a lot of new to me information or awareness around the importance of VO2 max.
Yes.
More so as a longevity factor. Now, I used to conduct VO2 max and sell VO2 max tests for people as part of we call it our executive wellness package, just to kind of really see that next level snapshot. So what is going on in the world of VO2 max? What is it, and why is it so important for the general public now?
Yeah. So VO2 max is a great consolidator of your overall physical fitness. Okay. And by that, I mean, there's this one biomarker, VO2 max, that really tells us overall how fit your entire biology is, and specifically even your mitochondrial health. Okay. So you want to know what your VO2 max number is. There's different ways of testing this. So there's, I think it's called the Cooper's test, where you can run for 12 minutes and see how long you run. That's one way of doing it. There's VO2 max testing they used to do where you wear a mask. Even now wearables are giving estimates of VO2 max.
And even running a sub VO2 max test, which I think most treadmills and most gyms probably have an option for that. It's a particular protocol in terms of like incline and speed, but you can get that information pretty easily.
Yeah, yeah. And so knowing what this number is very, more than almost any other biomarker, I think grip strength is pretty close, is correlated to your longevity, how long you're going to live, right? And so you should know what this number is, and then you should be able to improve upon it, right? And so there's all these charts that anyone can find by Googling them that shows you what is the VO2 max that you should be at for your age and your sex, and then where you can be at if you are an elite or an athlete, right? And so you want to get towards a higher level of that VO2 max range. And so I think it's a great number to know, and it's a great number to follow over time.
Add it to your spreadsheet, everybody.
Yes.
Hormones, particularly testosterone, for both men and women. And I say women because I feel like most females in the general public have a misinformation situation about testosterone in terms of how important it is for their health, their energy, their reproductive health. Almost kind of similar to that barrier to creatine for a lot of women. They feel like if I have too much of it or any of it at all, it's going to make me look some kind of way, feel some kind of way. Why is testosterone so important for men and women?
Yeah, and so I'm so glad you touched on this, because women need to understand that their testosterone level is very highly correlated to all forms of chronic disease for women as well as for men. So Alzheimer's disease, heart disease, the testosterone level makes a big difference in your risk of developing chronic disease, but also not only developing chronic disease, but also how you feel, your level of energy, your ability to keep fat off. For men and for women, your testosterone level is an indicator of that as well. So, it's a natural fact of life that men will go through andropause and women will go through menopause. And during your 40s especially, I think is very important. And now even earlier, even in your 30s, it's important for women and men to keep an eye on their testosterone level, at least getting it checked. We do it quarterly for our patients, but at least once a year, knowing if you're headed in the wrong direction, because it's generally a sign of aging, but also if it's dropping off a cliff, there's something else going on. And so you got to adjust, and you have to figure out what the reason is, because if you have a low testosterone level, not only are you going to have more chronic disease, you're also going to not feel great, right? And having a good testosterone level, as we know, you feel vital, you feel energetic, you want to conquer the world. That's true for men and for women.
Yeah, I know the range of what it feels like to be in like the 500s, and I also know, like 1200. Yeah. It's literally, you're going to conquer the world to, I don't feel like getting off the couch.
Yeah. There's a lot of men living out there in 200s, Yeah.
So from personal experience, but also just kind of, diving deeper into it, testosterone, the number on paper in terms of your labs does not always directly equate to a symptom.
Absolutely.
So expand on that for us, please, because you said, we could be heading in the wrong direction with testosterone. So we could technically on paper have low T, but not be symptomatic, or we could be symptomatic, but have high T. Why is that?
Yeah, it's because that every person's testosterone level that they live at is going to be different. Okay. And so really your optimal testosterone level is where it was for you in your 20s. Okay. In your early 20s.
I wish I got my labs done in my 20s, man.
And that's why it's so important. If you're out there and you're in your 20s, get your labs done now, because
even if you feel great.
Even if you feel great, because if you have a full lab panel now, you'll have something to compare it to as you age.
That's such a good idea.
Yeah. 20 to 27 is really like our optimum biology. energy, right? And so,
God, I wish I had that data. I wish I had that data.
I know, but every person who's listening that can do that now and get that data, it's so valuable to know. Anyhow, so that's your optimal testosterone level. It's going to be different for each person. It might be 1,200 for one guy, or it might be 600 or 700 for somebody else. And so you really want to know what that is, and your symptoms won't necessarily correlate to that number, right? And so it's a kind of a dual-edged sword on that as well. So if you're having normal testosterone, but you're still having symptoms, we have to figure out why.
Symptoms like what? For men and women, maybe low T.
Yeah, low energy.
T.
I would say low energy, brain fog, sleep disturbances, and inability to keep fat off, inability to build muscle. I think those are some of the top symptoms that you can consider. If you have any of those, like, it might be worth looking at your testosterone levels. There's ways to naturally encourage your testosterone to go up, things like heavy weight lifting. There's also supplements like creatine, ashwagandha that can help with some testosterone elevation. So explore those things first. And then if those aren't working for you, see someone who really specializes and really understands hormone replacement therapy, because there's all different ways of doing it. There's safe ways and unsafe ways of doing it. So
hormones are wild, especially testosterone. My wife now kind of for the last year is specializing in hormone replacement therapy for men and women, TRT, and just advanced hormone labs.
Nice.
It is such a finesse. It is fine-tuning. It's wild. And especially when you look at the number compared to symptom and symptom compared to number, the two don't always correlate, hence my kind of original question. But it is really just, it's knowing the numbers, really expanding on how well you can check in with yourself and understanding what biofeedback is, I think are crucial.
Absolutely. And, I think another important fact to remember is living at a low testosterone, whether you're symptomatic or not, especially after the age of 40, is going to increase your chance of chronic disease.
Well, okay, all right. So,
and skeletal muscle loss.
So even if we're not symptomatic, after that age of 40, low T, unchecked, prolonged periods of time, we're actually doing ourselves a disservice?
Yes, exactly. It does lead to more levels of chronic disease. It's been shown in study after study that lower testosterone levels has increased rates of neurodegenerative disease, cardiovascular disease, even cancer. Wow. So, there's something there. For whatever reason, biology was, the evolution was done with us when we were 40, and it kind of shut off our systems for making hormones genetically. We're just genetically programmed to have less hormones, and women go through menopause. But, we're living a lot longer than 40 now. And so,
hopefully. Yeah.
And so I think that's one area that humans have kind of outgrown biologic evolution. And now we need to look at other methods of kind of maintaining good hormone levels over time, right?
So good. So good. I have a few other bullet points here. I want to kind of just run, maybe like two more. And then I want to kind of just have you share a little bit of your backstory.
Sure.
Again, all of your information is going to be down in the show notes for everybody. But I mean, this guy, what he has accomplished at such a young age is no small feat. So if you're wondering like, who the hell is this guy telling me all this information? It is well earned.
Thank you.
So two other key areas of interest, I think, for most people right now are fertility health and Ozempic, GLP-1.
Sure.
I think a lot of people are trying to become more aware of that fertility snapshot, men and women. And then also just, you can't go anywhere now and not hear the word Ozempic, I think. So fertility health, how would you describe it to the general public, and what can a man and a woman both do to educate themselves first, but then improve their chances of reproducing, maybe even not now, but just down the road? And then what in the world is going on with Ozempic? Yeah,
for sure. So on the fertility point, what I would say is your fertility health is an indicator of your overall health. And it's if you are having trouble getting pregnant, there's something definitely wrong in the overall health scenario here, okay? Other than other like actual anatomical issues that could occur, okay? So if a male has low sperm count, if a woman is unable to get pregnant, we not only work with the fertility doctor to improve their fertility, and there's medications to increase sperm count, there's medications to increase ovarian function as well. There's biomarkers you can measure for fertility. Fertility doctors are excellent at that, and we work very hand in hand with a lot of fertility doctors to optimize a person's overall health from a functional standpoint. Okay. And so one of the biggest kind of reasons that people have problems with their fertility is a low level of inflammation going on in their body.
I was not expecting that answer.
Yes. Inflammation, and usually inflammation comes from, like, low levels of inflammation comes from gut health disturbances, right? Oral health disturbances.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we'll find a lot of people, once we get their gut health organized, either by, going gluten-free and fixing their gut barrier, fixing their microbiome, their fertility will improve as well. And so there's a lot of examples like that. It's not just, inflammation. There's also hormone disturbances. There's also metabolic health, which is a massive, has massive implications to fertility as well. So once we get those things treated and once we get those things optimized, people immediately improve their fertility. And so if you're seeing a fertility doctor, but you're not optimizing some of these other aspects, your metabolic health, your gut health, your inflammation, you're doing yourself a disservice. Okay. So you should be doing both concurrently.
I also want to get your opinion on advising someone who right now is not interested in reproducing, is not even sure if they ever want to. From a health perspective, why should they care about their reproductive health?
Yeah, once again, I think it's, one of my answers to that would just be, it's a really good indicator of your overall health, right? And so if your reproductive health is off, there's something going on in your overall health as well. Other than that, I think, you never know if you want to get pregnant as well.
I agree. Yeah.
We do a lot of these conversations when we talk to anyone about hormone replacement therapy, especially, men need to understand that this will potentially reduce your chances of being able to reproduce for quite a while.
I froze my sperm years ago.
Yeah.
And I was even... I was like, I know I want to have kids, but you just never know.
You never know, right? Exactly. So you definitely want to keep, by the way, freezing your sperm is a great idea because your sperm at a younger age are going to be healthier and more able to reproduce.
Ran a test, motility, morphology, count, everything was great. So I was like, cool, I got a great sample. Let's freeze it. I got a great option later.
Exactly.
Should I need it?
Yeah. And there's a lot of companies that'll just send you like a box and you just send it in.
Yeah, I did it all at home. Yeah. Shout out Legacy. Yeah.
Great idea. So again, if you're in your 20s and this is something that you're looking to do and you can invest some money into this, I would definitely do that.
And in my opinion, it was pretty affordable for what you get. It was, I think, like $200.
Yeah.
Came with a really expanded report. Even you could get a call with somebody to kind of run through it. And it's just peace of mind. For me, it's peace of mind knowing that, okay, check, that part of my health is good and that part of my future health is covered, and also future kind of personal choice.
It's so good you mentioned this right now too, because, as a society, for whatever reason, we're having children later and later in life, right? And so that's why there's such a crisis of fertility right now, is people are deciding when they're 40, it's time to have children. And, human beings are meant to have children in much earlier than that, right?
Like half that age.
Exactly. So you never know what's going to happen in life, and it's always good to hedge with technology like this. Getting all your biomarkers checked, getting your sperm frozen, knowing your mobility and motility now, all that stuff is so important, right?
Man, if I was back, I wish I could go back to 2027 and be like, get these labs, Chase, do this sperm count.
Right.
Okay, so now Ozempic, GLP-1. What, in your opinion, what's the best question here? What is it? What was it originally designed for? And what is the general public you think using it for now? And should we be concerned?
Right. So Ozempic, let's just talk about semaglutide in general. Okay, this is a peptide. A peptide is an amino acid segments of actual hormone that works somewhere in our body. GLP-1 is this particular one. So it's a little bit different than your typical chemical pharmaceuticals because you're actually using biomimicry. You're actually mimicking one of our natural hormones that's produced in our gut to control hunger. All right. And so that's what this is. So I'm sure you're familiar with peptides. I'm sure a lot of your audience is familiar with peptides.
I've used them off and on over the years. Yeah.
Exactly. And so peptides traditionally are compounded by a lot of pharmacies. So I've been using semaglutide for years, actually. It was originally developed as a potential treatment for metabolic disease, which obesity
for diabetics, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't say diabetics because it's metabolic disease in general, right? Okay. And so the diabetic indication happened when Ozempic became a drug to treat a disease.
I see.
Right? Okay. You can't develop a drug unless you're treating a disease.
Okay.
However, semaglutide has been available way before when we were just treating metabolic syndrome with this. And part of metabolic syndrome is obesity for a lot of people. And so we were actually using this way before it became a drug. Okay. So I mentioned that because I want people to understand that, pharmaceutical companies now are kind of usurping all of these peptides. And, the FDA recently came out and made a lot of peptides unavailable.
They yanked BPC 157, my personal favorite. I've had so much success with well-being and also injury recovery.
And why do you think they did that? Why do you think they yanked it?
I think because they realized they're not making any money off of it. And all these other compounding pharmacies and even telehealth companies are able to, lack of a better term, get away with it.
Right. And so a pharmaceutical company took a peptide, made it Ozempic, and made it the most valuable pharmaceutical the world has ever seen. Why not do that again with BPC 157? Why not do that again with all the peptides? Yeah. So that's what we're seeing now, which is a super unfortunate reality once again of the healthcare system that we live in. Anyway, all that being said, I think semaglutide is a very valuable peptide medication. And, and it's come to the forefront by pharmaceutical companies selling it for people to lose weight. And unfortunately, whenever something like this happens, there's going to be a lot of misuse, right? And so, you have these lots of memes on the internet of Hollywood celebrities saying, I have this new workout plan. Nope, that was Ozempic, right? And so you see this all over the place.
Maybe that's why my smoothies are over $12. They've got like Ozempic in there now.
Exactly.
You can get it at the smoothie bar I go to. They've got like a little wellness clinic. You can pop in, get a smoothie, go get a GLP-1.
Oh my gosh, right there. That's incredible. Yeah. That's just mind-blowing. So what I would say is I think it's a very valuable medication that's been out for a long time. I think that it's good that it's coming to like on the forefront of the public knowledge now. Like it or not, we're in an obesity crisis in the entire Western world that we need to reverse one way or the other. The problem with the misuse of it and the overuse of it and the overprescribing of it, just like what happened with Crestor and all, and
Lipitor
and lowering
cholesterol medications.
Yeah, exactly. Lowering LDL level is that there's this like knee-jerk reaction to prescribe it. You're obese, here's some Ozempic, get skinny, right? And it involves so much more care and investigation than that, and involves a lot more education. Okay, so what I always say to my patients is obesity is not just being over fat; it's also being under muscled. Right? And so if you just take Ozempic by itself, you're going to lose fat, but you're also going to get even more under muscled, making your metabolic disease even worse.
Yes.
So you need to make sure that we're using this for the right reason, which is, yes, we want to control your appetite for a certain amount of time, during which time we're going to re-educate you on how to eat, right? We're going to improve the food that you're going to be eating is going to be mostly protein because we want to maintain your muscle mass, and we're going to get you into a strength training program, and we're going to have a goal weight, and we're going to get you off of this when you reach that goal weight, right? Now, the other kind of thing that people need to really understand that's coming is Ozempic. Sorry, I said Ozempic, but I meant semaglutide. Semaglutide is also going to be very valuable for treating lots of other disease processes. So it's actually showing lower rates of cardiovascular disease with this, because all disease is rooted in metabolic disease.
Yeah, I was going to kind of piggyback this question off and ask, because I've heard this exact term now being used by, I won't say names, but very prominent health and wellness, fitness experts, influencers, talking about how we should be, quote, more or less microdosing semaglutide, microdosing GLP-1, and using Ozempic as an optimization tool, just broadly speaking.
Yeah, I think the science and the claims on that is just that's way overstated right now.
I think it's very early.
I think it's way too early to be saying that. And once again, we just really have to realize like everyone's a different person. Like you have zero metabolic disease right now. For you to start microdosing Ozempic right now, it's not the right thing to do. It's going to be.
I agree.
at the very worst, it's a waste of money and time. At the very best, but at the very worst, you could be causing gastroparesis. You can cause other type of problems, and so you have to be very careful in those types of things. There is going to be a situation where someone should be microdosing semaglutide. Okay. And so we don't know.
What might that look like?
Yeah, exactly. So these are people that are trending towards metabolic disease no matter what they eat, no matter what they do. These are people that potentially have other diseases that we can show Ozempic can.
So a lot of comorbidities.
Exactly. Okay. Comorbidities, even like it's actually being shown to help with some autoimmune diseases as well. So maybe those people can also be treated with Ozempic. So we just really there's a lot more science that needs to be done. And there's a lot of individual patient treatment programs that need to be created for individual diseases, and we're just not there yet.
Incredible answers. Yeah. You're a wealth of information. This has been an incredible experience. Thank you so much for kind of just really diving into the weeds with a lot of things. And I know you've addressed a lot of things at a pretty high level.
Thank you.
But that was my intention for today's episode. And this is a great stepping stone for anybody listening, watching to kind of go, oh, that piqued my interest. It means something to me personally, or I'm working on. Let me then go dive deeper.
Right.
So my kind of getting towards the end here, I want to kind of bring up, you have a very strong passion for your health and well-being, for the lives of other people. You're an MD. You actually became a medical doctor at the age of 21, becoming one of the youngest MDs in the country at the time. What drove you so passionately to become a physician at such an accelerated cadence?
Yeah, it's a great question. Unfortunately, the answer is not one of a passion. It was basically, my dad told me either you become a doctor or a lawyer.
Okay,
yeah, either you become a doctor or a lawyer. And I really loved biology.
Was he then and do it faster than anybody else as well?
Well, I think a lot of that just was circumstances. I was able to, skip a couple of grades here and there. I switched high schools halfway through my high school career, and then I had enough credits to skip a year of high school. And then I went to the 6-year medical program I got into at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. That was one of the only programs that took people right out of high school into medical school and combined your bachelor's degree with your medical degree. So I was lucky enough to finish by the time I was 21. I just think it was, I just worked hard back then. I kind of had no life except studying and doing this. And and I did have a passion for biology. It's so super interesting. And I remember as a kid, I would put together all these like models of the human body and dissect pigs with my dad and stuff. But it was also like, you got to do this. It's just part of our background. I come from an Indian heritage. And so, there's very few career options you have in our
I know
heritage.
By proxy, my wife is Middle Eastern. And so, I'm very familiar with the with that mentality of doctor, lawyer, be the best than anybody else kind of thing.
Yeah. And but in medical school, I discovered that I wanted to be a surgeon. I just loved the immediacy of just seeing the results. I just loved the artistry of it. And so I did surgery. I did general surgery and trauma surgery for many years. And then I decided I wanted to further specialize. So I went to the Mayo Clinic and I learned reconstructive surgery. And so after like big cancer removals, they would call us in to reconstruct the patient. And so, and
that's got to be pretty damn rewarding work as well.
It was incredible. And I did it for so long. And some of the cases that we did were mind blowing. And so we did some even like I participated in the separation of conjoined twins, those kind of things. Incredible stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, it was.
Those hands have touched this microphone, everybody. Incredible. Wow.
Yeah, so I was able to do a lot of incredible surgery. I am also an entrepreneur. And so I came to California after all my training was done. I started opening surgical centers and clinics and did that for many years. But, just like most entrepreneurs out there, you end up prioritizing your business and then you get a family, your family becomes priority, and what becomes absolute last priority is you, right? So I got myself into a really bad place where I had 5 disease diagnoses going on: autoimmune disease, hypertension, diabetes. I was also had metabolic syndrome, and found myself in a really horrible state of health about 10 years ago. And at that moment, my son was born, and I quickly did I actually found this article the night my son was born at the doctor's lounge where I do surgery. My son was born in the L&D, and then I went to the surgical lounge, and there was an article there. It's like an omen from God. It was like, the article was titled something like Morbidity and Mortality in People with Multiple Medical Diagnoses, basically.
AKA, Darshan, pay attention.
Yes, exactly. You are going to die in 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm laughing, but it's not funny.
Yeah. I was like really shocked that I had like almost a 50% chance of dying before my son graduated from high school. That was nuts. And so I decided that moment that I would make a massive change. And so I was lucky enough I was able to take some time off of work and learn about functional medicine. I kind of fell into functional medicine and just really understood what root cause medicine was. And so I made my own changes just for my own personal well-being. But I was also seeing surgical patients, and I was telling them like what I'm doing, because they're like, Dr. Shah, you're like losing weight. Like, how are you doing it? I'm like, oh, let me tell you about gut health. Let me tell you about protein.
Let me tell all you doctors about gut health and protein. Wow.
Right.
Wow.
Right. Yeah.
Jeez.
So, and then patients were losing weight and not needing surgery, actually. And so I considered that a win. And I'm like, you know what? This is the kind of medicine I want to practice. So I, over time, exited surgery and went into health optimization, longevity, started a new business.
Shout out Next Health.
Next Health, right? And that's been my passion now for the last 8 years.
Incredible. Well, your passion is so present and so palpable, and is exactly what I look for when I sit across the table here with people on EverForward Radio. Is you have done something to move you forward in your life, but you didn't stop there. You helped your community, your family, the country at this point with the expansion of Next Health, learn how to move forward in unique areas of their well-being.
Right.
So to ask you directly, my last question, EverForward, what do those two words mean to you?
For me, it really means that there's never really a moment in time that we should ever think that we're done. You should always be learning, you should always be teaching, and you should always be moving the life of yourself and your family and your friends forward. And through that, society. So in my own personal life, I'm writing a book right now, just putting my protocols on paper that we use for all of our patients right now. And I think, that's a passion project of mine right now. I don't even... I'm not doing it for the money, I'm doing it because I really feel like I've helped a lot of people with what we've put into place for them. So why not put in a book and bring this information forward? And I'm going to keep doing that forever. I'm going to keep speaking until my last breath. I'm going to keep, spreading the information, not for any other reason other than like you help other people make their lives better. And I think if everyone just did that, what an incredible world this would be.
Well, don't stop. Please don't stop.
Thanks.
I don't see it stopping for you anytime soon. Where can my audience go to connect with you directly and learn more about your speaking, Next Health, all that stuff?
Yeah. Next Health's website is www.next-health.com. So we have a lot of practitioners that do exactly this protocol. You could find them there.
And please, I didn't really kind of expand on it, quickly, high level. What is Next Health?
So Next Health is a health optimization and longevity center, we call it. We have, it's actually like a 4-wall business where you can go in and you can get your biomarkers done. You can visit with a practitioner that'll go over all the results with you. And then we actually have all of this technology on site. Things like LED, infrared therapy, cryo, sauna, plasma
many
exchange.
a time. Yeah.
So it's a place where you can go if you don't have this stuff at home or in your gym. This is another place you can go to participate in all of this. And so we have locations right now in New York and LA, but we're expanding all over the country. We'll have 30 plus locations the next 3 years everywhere. So
and apparently everywhere I go expanding Operation Podcast, you go too. I walk out of Nashville and there's Next Health right there, and apparently other places too. And so that's incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's so incredible to see what's happened with the business and what the team has done with this. Mind blowing. And then my social media is at Darshan Shah MD. So that's
amazing. And he's got great information, very high level, but also kind of, I'll say day-to-day information that I think anybody can understand, but more importantly, apply. And then you can kind of choose your own adventure.
Right.
A little bit. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Can't wait to do this again with you one of these days.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Got to have you come back when the book comes out for sure.
Let's do that for sure.